Most people who are in my life, most people who I love, most people who I, probably feel the most loyal to. I mean, that they're happy, that, I'm being read by a lot of people. They're happy if I get an award. They're happy, if I'm on a certain show, but it is not how they ascribe value to who I am. And what I mean by that, or why I'm saying that is those are the people to whom I'm accountable to. Those are the people who will ultimately, you know what I mean, judge me. And so it's like there are a circle of people around me who exert more weight than any booker for any show or any sort of editor at any magazine, who are not writers and who are not particularly public people, but would be deeply disappointed in me if I were not, proceeding in an ethical way. And I look, I don't, obviously this is our first time talking, but I've seen you on a number of shows at this point beyond your own show, and my sense is you did not get on those shows by trying to get on those shows. That you got on your shows actually by being loyal to something that was here. You know what I mean? It actually had nothing to do with, you know what I mean? With whatever. And I just think that's important to reflect. You know what I mean? I think it's important as if we're doing an unk off here, to all the young nephews and nieces, you know what I mean, coming up. Like I think it's important. Like you can be loyal to other things. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can take that whole social capital conversation, you know what I mean, and not make it quarter, who you are and what's important to you.
No, the only reason why I mentioned that is because it's not for you in particular, but it's for the way I look at this. Like people benefit from leaning into pre-existing hierarchies and not really disrupting them and not really coming out with like bold declarative statements. It can sometimes be a gap in education or your personal experiences, like understanding what apartheid looked like until experiencing it with firsthand accounts, which I do want to get to in a second. Or it can be, in other instances, like a cynical way where you know what the truth is, but you choose not to reveal it or not to talk about it because you are worried about advancement. You're worried about your career taking a downturn. And I think that there are a lot of people who are cynical in that regard, especially in the media landscape. So I do admire people who who will openly say I was wrong in the past and I'm making up for it now, because I think that's necessary and I think that's healthy. I think it's a healthy attitude to have, and I think people have that attitude in their interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
But the way they carry themselves both online and in the media landscape, there is no reward for it. And because there is no reward for it, and the reward is just simply saying the truth, right? But people do end up getting somewhat punished for it, and you only get rewarded if you double down on speaking on telling an alternative narrative that you might even know is not entirely true. That's the reason why I explaining to people that are listening that there is value here, and that's what I mean. Because like, if I'm going to be very real, if I'm going to be brutally honest, you could have continued never speaking about Israel ever again. You could have changed your perception. You could have changed your mind. No, I know, but I'm saying that like in an alternative scenario, in an alternative universe, where there's a different Ta-Nehisi Coates who saw the truth and was still more personally invested in continuing to have like a media career that he cares about. Some people do care about these things. Clearly, I think the vast landscape is dominated by people that are careerists, that are personally invested in their own success and don't necessarily have this ambition to speak the truth, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult that task may be. And that's why I think it's important to be honest and highlight that. Now,
and I appreciate that, bro. I do. Yeah. I appreciate that. I don't want to come off as unappreciative.
That ultimately is still, and this is something that I also want to stress, is still inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, because what you are trying to do, I think, is exactly what I've also been trying to do on a multitude of different issues, which is utilizing the privilege that you have and utilizing the privilege that I have for offering a voice to people that are otherwise voiceless, while simultaneously also saying you shouldn't be the person to even, like, the very fact that you yourself are the messenger in this process, I think shows a gap, an asymmetry that is worthy of criticism in and of itself. The fact that there is no entrenched Palestinian position in any Western media operation is a issue that's worthy of criticism in and of itself. And I think you do a great job of pointing that out as well in this process.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And well, on the one hand, it obviously makes it easy to inflict apartheid, to inflict genocide and service of apartheid. It also makes it easier because Americans are dumber for. We are more ignorant for not hearing from that person. We, understand. We don't get a clear picture of. I mean, you hinted at it when you started off this conversation. And this is what I meant by default Zionism. Like, this vocabulary just kind of goes only democracy in the Middle East has the right to defend itself.
Yeah.
Has the right to exist. And it's just said so much that it just becomes part of the milieu and the air. And nobody says, you know what I mean? Well, hold up. Well, what actually is a democracy? Is this actually democratic? Is it democratic? Half of the population under your rule on a separate tier from the other half. What part of democracy is that? The right to defend itself, but the right to defend itself from what? The right to exist. The right to exist as what? As what?
Yeah.
And so I think like those kind of second level, third level questions are shunted off in favor of these kind of cute, catchphrases. And what happens is because those questions don't get asked, because reporters don't ask them, man. I mean, and this is, what I was saying earlier. I just want to be, absolutely clear about this. We failed on this. Because those second level and third level questions do not get asked of representatives, viewers and readers are dumber for it. Yeah, they're dumber for it. It's incredibly sad. It's incredibly sad. I can only give what I saw and what I read over the past year preparing this work. But there are people who have imbibed the collective wisdom of living under it. I mean, one of the critiques I got was, well, you were only over there for 10 days. You're correct. I wish you would get somebody on there that has lived their life over there. I will happily step aside for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an insidious linguistic thing that people utilize, and sometimes it masquerades as like innocent, innocuous, but it is actually serving a very dangerous purpose overall, which is to mask the systems of violence the daily existence of apartheid require. You cannot maintain an apartheid without a constant surveillance state. You cannot maintain an apartheid without constant violence, without checkpoints. Things that you saw, it only took you maybe not even 10 days. I assume it took you just to immediately recognize what was going on. A similar thing happened to Jamal Bowman as well when he went to the West with his wake up call, his moment of recognition. So could you talk a little bit about your experience in Hebron specifically, just, in the West Bank as well, that caused you to fully realize what was going on?
Yeah, it's very painful. First of all, Hebron is very poor. That's the first thing. I should make that. Let me. Palestinians who live in the old city of Hebron, they're very poor because their shops and markets have been completely shut. Because every step that they take is patrolled, and they have to navigate a series of checkpoints. Security, and the checkpoints take various forms. And at a gate, sometimes it's just a soldier standing there. I watched a soldier with a huge automatic rifle turn back two kids as they made their way to